Greetings from IOS. We want to welcome you back to our United in Diversity, a program where we discuss a lot of important issues that come from different cultures. We are so delighted that you have decided to be with us today. And today we have a very interesting topic, a challenging one, because we'll be looking at gender discrimination. As you may have noticed, lately we have been addressing some of the taboos that we have in communities, and yet these are real issues that people are facing. We are not experts, but we have some opinions. And therefore, if you have any question, because what we're going to do here, we have different people from different walks of life. They have different opinions, and you may agree or disagree with some of them. But if you have questions, please know that it's not the representation of IOS. So these are just individual opinions. And if you have questions, just email us, and I'll be sharing with you the email address at the end of this program. Something else I want to give as a disclaimer. We are broadcasting this program from IOS, and IOS is an Adventist university where we believe that there are two genders, men and women. And so we will not be addressing any other genders that have come across over the years. We go by the biblical foundation of men and women. So when we talk about gender discrimination, we'll be looking primarily at men and women. I have invited men to join me today to talk about gender discrimination. I know that in most cultures, when we talk about gender discrimination, we think primarily about women. So I thought it was a good idea to interview the men and find out what they think gender discrimination is all about. And we're going to find out if they think men also go through gender discrimination. I've invited people from different continents and different countries. Let's get to know them. Let's start on my left. Please tell us your name, your country of origin, and what you're doing here.
My name is Pavel Zubkov. I'm from Russia. I'm an applied theology teacher here, teaching mission classes.
Welcome, Dr. Pavel.
My name is Gioy Cruz, and I'm from Brazil. And I'm also teaching in the Department of Applied Theology in the seminary at IOS.
You know, I've never learned how to really pronounce your first name properly. That's why I always call you Dr. Cruz.
Joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
No. You pronounced it differently at the beginning.
Gioy.
Gioy.
Gioy. Yeah.
Gioy.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll need to practice that one. Welcome all the way from Brazil and from Russia. So we have two continents covered here. Let's go to the next one.
My name is David Odhiambo, Pastor David Odhiambo from Kenya. Currently been a student at IOS.
Thank you so much. And so we have Africa represented here.
Yes, Kenya.
Wonderful. Welcome, Dr. Pastor and Elder Odhiambo.
Praise God.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Jose Mario de Castro, or most of you know me by Jomar. So I'm Jomar. I'm a TESOL student here in IOS and also an English teacher in the English Center.
Welcome, Jomar. I think most of us in the audience here know Jomar very well because he's a multi-talented man. He always blows my mind away with his gift of languages. This week I was talking with him, and he told me, "Oh, now I'm learning Urdu." Just like he's, just something like I can learn for 5 minutes. Just talks about it so easily. He speaks Russian and Indonesian and Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, French, you name it. This man is multi-gifted. And of course, for music, we have seen him doing wonderful things. So welcome to our program, Jomar.
Thank you so much.
Let's start with our first question. What comes to your mind when somebody says gender discrimination? Dr. Cruz.
Division, separation, and also remember that God made us different with a purpose. Sometimes we may confuse that purpose for which we are made by God. So discrimination starts when people feel bad about the qualifications that they give to him or to her, right? And by the way, this differs from culture to culture, from place to place. And it's interesting to see when someone moves from one culture to another, sometimes you may feel more freedom, and sometimes it will be the opposite. So it is, in fact, no, gender discrimination, it's a separation, it's a division, it's a classification of men and women.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go all the way to the Philippines.
Wow. So gender discrimination, for me, it has a lot to do with gender inequalities. And when we focus so much on the exaggeration of gender roles and gender function, so it comes out and it usually hurts people. And that's why we have to talk about it. These are misconceptions. We generalize, and because of it, people are hurt or people find it hard to accept.
I hear two concepts here: separation, which leads to inequality. Do you want to add something before we go to Russia?
Well, I'm a bit confused because sort of I'm in a situation where I'm forced to think in a certain way of gender discrimination. And that means I'm forced to say there's a problem by beginning by thinking of gender discrimination. And probably because of my orientation as an African, I'm trying to bring my thought to grapple with this idea, because in one instance back at home, I remember one lady telling me that, Pastor, you know, if my husband doesn't slap me, he doesn't love me. But I know that somebody in the congregation is going to bring up that issue as an issue of discrimination where a woman is looked down upon. But this is a lady herself telling me, Pastor, I was teaching family life, and he told me, Pastor, if he doesn't slap me once in my life, this was an elderly lady, then he doesn't love me.
Okay, so, you know, this is one of those things that we say, don't try this at home. Just don't. Please continue.
So I'm forced to fall into categories that are not my orientation. And this category of trying to say that there is a situation whereby somebody is unfairly being treated.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's just leave it to that. Somebody being unfairly treated. Because maybe in the case of this woman, fairness of treatment was for the husband to slap her. And so she felt that she was fairly treated by having that. And this brings something that we discussed here on this program in another session where we talked about respect. And I remember sharing a story where I went for a mission trip to Uganda. And this elderly woman who was old enough to be my mother was supposed to bring me water to drink. And she came and she knelt in front of me. It was devastating for me because just like as you said, I didn't believe that somebody should kneel in front of me. But when I asked the son, who happened to be in my age, what is going on here? Please tell her to stand up. He said, no, if she doesn't do that, she will not feel comfortable. She will feel like she's disrespectful to you. And so I like your definition that gender discrimination is a phenomenon where a certain gender feels unfairly treated. I think that is safe. All right, let's try to go to Europe and see how we will define gender discrimination.
Well, I will talk first from biblical perspective,
Okay,
then go
sure.
to Europe.
Okay.
To me, gender discrimination comes as a result, as an outcome, when the creation order is not followed properly. Okay. I mean, male and female were created equally with the same status. They are equal. Mm-hmm. Another thing is they have different roles. They have totally different roles. So in some cases, they are, of course, they're overlapping, they're intersecting, but they have still different roles. So when we're confusing these things, and when we confuse roles, then we have a problem of discrimination, I believe. The same thing is about equality. So when we make someone, who is not equal, it's not fair treatment. Yeah, it shouldn't be like that.
I can't wait to hear the version of the ladies when we say that there are roles that are specific for men and roles that are specific for women. We're going to hear from them in another session. But let's go to another question. In your culture, who's discriminated against the most, men or women? Let's start with Jomar.
In my culture, it's really hard for me to answer this because I'm in the Philippines and I'm here in IS because I think here in IS most of you see also a different perspective. But I would say that ladies are very, this is very discriminating if I'd say so, but they notice, they are more observant because I think they're more emotional. But if you try to look at it, men are also discriminated in many ways, especially when the ladies assume already that I have to be treated this way, because men are very quiet. They usually are passive in the Philippine context. They don't want what do you call that, confrontation, so they just let somebody take over. So because of that, they become discriminated, but nobody complains about it, so it doesn't become an issue. But when the ladies do so, it becomes one.
Okay. You took a very safe measure. Let's go to Brazil. In Brazil.
Well, I think in Brazil, if you take it as an average, I think women, they suffer more, although men also suffer. You know, we have many types of discrimination for both sides. And well, just an example. In Brazil, for example, a salary, if you talk about work, in a workplace, a salary for a woman, she will have an average of 70% less than a man in the same position. And that is statistics, right? Yeah. Another thing that I was checking this week is 1 in 8 men will reach a top position in his company, while for women, it will be 1 woman in 40 to reach that position. So it shows statistically that women suffer some discrimination in the workplace. Also, in the community, in the society, there are some types of discrimination. Let me say, for example, men. We men cannot wear pink. Although I see my colleague here, I feel happy. If I wear pink around walking around, people are going to look at me and say, this guy has something funny about him. He must be kind of, he's not defined gender. So this is a type of discrimination, because I like pink color. So I feel discriminated by that. For example, or let me say something else. What about, let's say, one thing that happens often in many places. Men don't cry. Yeah? See, in Brazil, they
are not allowed.
I have to say, we are a type of chauvinist. Men don't cry. Yeah. Father may tell his kid, you are a man, don't cry. This is discrimination. It shouldn't be like this. We are human with feelings, just like any other woman. So I would say there are many things that are on both sides, but in general in Brazil, women and girls, they suffer more.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to jump to the next question because you have already started addressing that, and I think the two gentlemen here, will start with them. What gender discrimination have you seen or experienced? So let's start with Dr. Pavel. In your culture, please share.
Yes, one of them already mentioned by Dr. Cruz, colors, then also hair. If the male has a long hair, he can have a serious problem, He can easily lose those hairs when passing by some dark streets, Oh, wow. Yes. Well, because they think that he plays female. Oh. So it's a serious harass, Then, in general, I saw the same picture here in Russia. Females are still suffering more, especially of domestic violence. I will give you one example. Just recently, it was a very big case in the news when 3 daughters killed the father with kitchen knives. And it was just recently. Now they are under they are sued by the police. The problem is that they experienced domestic violence for all their lives. The father was beating the mother, was harassing and was abusing daughters, and many bad stuff. So finally they killed him. And this is something extreme. There are so many cases in our church that I observed when females are church members and the husbands are not. And they are like alcohol addicted, alcohol drunkards. So what the church is doing, the church is teaching these ladies, these wives, to be obedient, to be submissive, to be careful, to provide care, everything. So this is real case when the husband just makes it hard to reach the door and falls down. No, he cannot already go inside. So the lady drags him in, changes his clothes, gives him shower, puts him to bed, and then in the morning he's waking up very nice, why not to drink more? So this is something, he will not change at all because he likes this lifestyle. So I think in this case it's very clear that females are suffering more.
Okay, so we have cases where women will be physically and emotionally abused as part of gender discrimination. Pastor David.
As I said at the beginning, the gender aspect of it has a lot of psychological and this social and cultural elements. I have about 3 instances where of myself, now I have the language I could say, oh, that was gender discrimination. But at that time, they looked like the norms of my culture. Growing up, being born in town, I went home to stay with my grandparents. And I remember one time when I was going to the shopping center, and a lady was being pulled away by some man, and she was yelling. And the villagers seemed like nobody was concerned. So when I came back, I asked my grandmother, what was it that this lady was yelling and nobody's helping? And my grandmother said she's being married. So the parents already made their deal, and they are told she will be going to the market, you meet her and you take her. So I was at that time didn't understand, so I followed up the lady to the home where they had taken her. And lo and behold, in the morning, she was the happiest woman in the whole compound. She was married, meaning that was the way that she was taken home. That is one instance in my culture. Now I have the language, I would say that is gender discrimination.
But is this still happening, do you think?
In the village, no.
Okay.
Not so much.
Okay.
But that was like part of how a strong lady was married, because she was expected to outwit these men who were sent to get to take her to the other place. Another thing, I grew up in the orientation being told, if you only marry one woman, then you are blind, meaning you have one eye. So it's in my head. She's not around, so she's not threatened. In my head, I grew up with this idea that I need to marry 2 women. Thank God I'm a pastor anyway. Let people not be. But that is how people now, that is now, I could say another thing, could be described as gender discrimination. But you see, this is a norm. This is something people have lived with. And my culture, even many have lost countable elders from my church, who at a certain age got overwhelmed by the cultural pressure that they needed to have a second wife to be counted as men. Because they have the wealth, they have the money, but they're still having only one wife? No. So
this, again, is one of those that we said, don't try at home. You mentioned something, Dr. Cruz, that men are also discriminated against. I want us to come back to that. You had experience, you had mentioned wearing pink, that is not allowed. Men are not allowed to cry. Can you add just one more, please?
Yes, yes, there are several.
And this can be anywhere, whether
anywhere.
in Brazil or
Yeah.
here.
For example, let's say, man, you know, I was talking to a friend some years ago in a church, and we are talking about family issues and order, education. And he's a member in the church. He comes and says, you know, Pastor, my son, he's a real man. His room is always messed up, everything's upside down, and he is a man, male man. So we are talking about sexuality, something like this. So for him, being a man means being disorganized. So if you organize very well your room and put everything in place and clean and nice and tidy, you are a little, you know, not man. So this is cultural discrimination. No, he feels that's right doing that. Or for example, men should not wash the dishes. Like, you know, we have children, and I remember when they were small, we gave them jobs at home according to their ages. You know, if they were 8 years old, they had 8 responsibilities in the list to do every day. So I remember that some people came home and they saw my sons. One of the jobs was to wash the dishes. And they asked, oh, you ask your son to wash the dishes? Yes, of course. Oh, but isn't dangerous, you know? He can maybe later become, you know, not his gender is confused. You know, he maybe will be confused what he's going to be when he grows up.
Because of dishwashing.
Because of dishwashing.
Wow.
So, you see, this happens not only in my country, but other places. Or, for example, men should not change diapers of the babies. Oh, come on. You know, this is a female's job. It's not a female's job, but in many places, or holding a baby. You know, this morning I saw the dedication of children in church, and the fathers holding their babies. That's wonderful. In some places, they will never hold the baby. The woman must be. And if the woman does not hold, she will feel that she is not being honored, you know, because she feels that that's her job, not her husband's job. And it's both's job, you know, both have to share that responsibility.
Let's go to Jomar. Can you share with us what ways are men discriminated against?
In the Philippines, I think, I don't know.
You
if they
have
would-
been in several countries. You don't have to stick to the
this is
Philippines
very
on this
hard.
one.
But most of the time, when there is a job, for example, or in the division of jobs in whatever it is, men are supposed to have the harder task. Or for example, if we are traveling, if you have men with you, the men are supposed to, like, they stand, they take the worst places, regardless of like how tired they are or whatever happened to them that day. You have to, and that for me is something like. And girls, they say it like, "Hey, you're a man, so you have to sit there, or you have to sit at the back, or you have to stand," and we call it sabit in the jeepney. Sabit is to hang in the jeepney. And I've noticed also that men, they have different personalities or like identities when they talk to women and when they're with other men. Most of them, men, we have in our culture cariñoso, which is we got it from the Spanish. We are supposed to be loving among the opposite sex. But when with other guys, you show them like, no, I'm a man. No, I do not do that. But when they are talking to ladies, it's different. They show them also like a slightly feminine side of them, which the whole world do not see. So I think the mixture of this makes them lukewarm in a way they face society, because like, oh, men are like this, but they show another thing. There's a secret thing that they also try to hide.
All right. Thank you so much. You have pointed a lot of things that we take for granted, that women should be aware of this. You know, may see a man who is highly tired, who is seriously tired, but a woman will come who is full of vigor, now has to sit down before the man, even if the man is tired. These are things we just take for granted. Just as we're going to hear from women, a lot of things that men take for granted. I think Pastor Odiambo is trying to add something here. Then we move to the next question.
Just as I've tried to portray the culture I come from, where the man is portrayed as strong, but again, we get discriminated because if we get to write exams, you can't go to the university as a man to do medicine if you don't have an A stand. But a lady can go with a B+.
Oh, no.
So, you see, that already...
In the academic world, they have a lower standard for women.
Yes. We don't have the same... if you come to Kenya, the ladies will enjoy a better opportunity with a lower grade than a male.
Well, listen, Dr. Odiambo, this is something we're not going to try at IS. So if you send your daughters here, sorry.
So
there is no gender preference on the women.
The unfortunate part is the ladies are always sharp. They will make like all the A's, and many of them get to the opportunities. Unfortunately, again, because of the society, this male will try to find their way, and the ladies will not be able to find their way wherever they're supposed to be. So in this sense, another thing is about, because of that portrayed image that the male is a stronger one, the males, like in the church, the youth, are suffering because the male has to shoulder all the wedding expense. When I went to look for my wife, I was still a clerk in a law firm. But I was expected to get about 50 cows.
Ooh. For one bride?
That is not even the whole of my salary the whole year.
Okay, I think for those who have daughters, they need to send them to Kenya.
So, you see in that situation, when you come to church, in fact, currently in the church, we are trying to encourage the young people back at home to be open so that the church can get involved with the parents to allow the young man and the young woman go on. Because for sure some of the demands are far off the young man to be able to shoulder, to have a dowry for this lady to be married. And at the same time, you're expected to take care of that lady. Mm-hmm. In fact, in instances whereby even if she's earning money, you are still the one to support her. In every instance. Her money is her money.
Wow, that is definitely discrimination against men. Let's go to the next question, Dr. Pavel. In what ways is gender discrimination manifested in the Philippines? I know you have, even though you just came as a professor, you had lived here for a number of years, and I think you had the chance to tour around. This question will not go to Jomar, because he may be biased. So we're going to ask the foreigners, in what ways have you seen gender discrimination here? And it doesn't matter if it's against men or against women.
Yes. Well, I am still new to the Philippines. I still need to learn, but from my few observations, I have some experience. Well, there are some... this LRT, MRT, they have special wagons for ladies only. I was discriminated, I wanted to...
What is that you said?
To enter. Some
train.
Train, yes, has special wagons for ladies only.
Correct, I saw that. I saw that in Manila.
And once I almost entered because I didn't think.
Me too.
Yes.
And I was reminded you don't go there. And nobody told me. I just assumed that we just go anywhere you want. You see a seat. And we were actually, with the side for the men, women are actually allowed to go there. But the side of the women,
that's right.
Men are not.
That is right.
And so I saw, the side of the women, which I didn't know, that it was for the women. There was a lot of seats. I said, why should I go there when there's a lot of seats there? Yes. So I definitely remember seeing that.
To make it equal, they should have some wagons for men.
Okay. But they explained later on that it's really always hard for women when there's a lot of people. Yes. It's hard for them to get a space. So they say, okay, let's help them. All right.
The opposite example of discrimination is when I see males sitting and playing gambling, and ladies are taking care of kids and working, to provide for the family. That is another case. And I totally disagree with that. Yeah, sometimes I saw this, laziness of males.
Yes, yes, yes.
Another thing is when what else? Professions and occupations. You go to, for example, haircut, to do a haircut. Males are only supposed to provide haircuts for males and females for females. When you see an empty seat and there is a female to perform haircut, she will never perform it for me. I tried. And it's very hard to persuade, even though I have few hairs. And I said, it's not a big job for you.
Oh, she says half of it is already done. Why should I
it looks like
take
a
care of your
taboo,
hair?
No way. She will not touch. In my country, it's the opposite. You will not see a male cutting hairs at all. Very few. But mostly it's females.
Oh.
And here it's the opposite. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Well, interesting. Let's try with Dr. Cruz. Thank you, Dr. Pavel.
Yes, I have been here for only almost 3 years now, and I haven't seen much division or discrimination, but I could say one thing I have observed. I have never seen a lady jeepney driver, for example. I don't know if someone has seen it. Have you seen it? No, all the drivers in the jeepney, they're all male, men. Well, I don't see any problem from women driving, That could be okay. Also because the traffic is not so fast. It's very slow. It's not dangerous. You hardly have an accident here. Sometimes you touch each other, but the real accident, I've never seen it here. So that's something I've seen. And the second one I would say is, they think of the hair cutting. Usually you go for a haircut, there's a man there or someone else to cut. Yeah, who is not maybe a transgender or someone who is different, And I remember I went to a place once to a haircut, and there was this beautiful, pretty lady. She came to cut my hair, and then she looked at me and say, "How do you want your hair?" So I jumped in my chair and said, "Do what you want." Anyway, this is type of standard type of things here in Philippines. I have seen. Well, I'm new here. I cannot see the whole thing. What's really behind the culture.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to go to the next question because we're running out of time. And I want each one of you, starting with Dr. Odiambo, to give us 2 statements that when people use these statements, they are actually gender biased. It doesn't matter which culture it is.
Well, in my culture, I know that I have always been, in every failure, they identify me with a woman. Why are you handling a certain duty? Let's say just the normal chores at home, I didn't do them well. And somebody will say, why are you working like a woman?
That is definitely gender-biased statement. So you're working or speaking like a woman.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, sometimes even the expressions.
Wow.
If you stand up to read, and then you read with a low voice, read loudly. You don't stop reading like a woman.
Wow.
So
definitely. And these, they sound like innocent statements, but they are loaded with gender bias. Thank you so much. Jomar.
Yeah, for us, I actually am the same as him. For example, cooking. I love cooking. And most men are not supposed to be good in languages. So I have also that one. Like here in the Philippines, usually when you are good in math, wow, that's so manly of you. When you are good in math, they think that speaking and language is mostly for women. And cooking, the same thing. Hey, you cook like my mother, or you're like a mother. Why not a father for cooking? So these are the things for me that affects me, because it is something that it affects me because it's something that I loved doing. And I think we should begin and be very careful and sensitive with this statement.
And I think it relates to what Dr. Cruz was saying earlier, that yes, there are things that men should be doing, but they're not doing that because society dictates that. And in this case, who said that men should not cook? Sometimes I'm sure we have seen male chefs that are really, really good, or even just husbands in the families that are better than the wives. So simply because you're a man, you should not cook, you should not enjoy something you like doing. I think that's definitely gender bias there. Let's get two statements from you, Dr. Cruz.
Yes, well, I've heard a joke once. A lady was praying, and God told her, listen, you have the right of one wish. And she says, I'd like to be intelligent, have a logical thinking, and learn how to drive a car. And then God, in one click, transformed her in a man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you see, it's a joke coming from a culture where discrimination is heavy. Yes. Women don't drive. When women start driving, you say, be careful, a woman's coming here driving a car. That happens in my country. There are many jokes about women driving. It's a dangerous thing, whatever people say. Then, you see, in my house, for example, I can see a manager of a house. I don't think a man can be a better manager than a household than a man. No, a woman can do it much better. She knows how to cook in the right time. She knows when to prepare the stuff in the right time to sleep, cleaning and stuff. The management of everything happening, it's much better in the hands of a woman than a man. For example, that's what my experience, or at least my worldview, right? Now, if you go to Europe, there is a change of functions there. I know many places in Europe where man is the one managing home, taking care of kids and cleaning, and the woman is working. And that's perfectly acceptable. But in some places, like in South America, if we invert it and do it like in some countries in Europe, that would be a big problem. Why should it be a problem if you have a gift to do something better than the other? Or management of money. Some men think that they must manage money, and women should not even know how much money they have in the account. And there are many women who are very able to manage finances better than men. They are more prudent, they are more reserved, they know how to prioritize, the use of money, and we should take care of those, pay attention to those issues, and not depend on the culture.
What you have said there shows that there are two elements in this gender issue. As you had indicated earlier, that there are probably things that are, I think he was the one who said that, things that are really naturally for women and things that are naturally for men from biblical perspective. But we all agree also that society dictates a lot of what each gender has to do. And I think we're going to hear more about this from the ladies. But before that, let's get two statements from you. Statements that people use commonly, but they're gender biased.
Yeah. Two examples come to my mind. One is the statement made by actor Melissa Gilbert. Mm-hmm. She said, actress can play woman only. I'm an actor. I can play anything.
Oh, wow.
There is a language-based discrimination. Yeah. When we talk about, let's say, manpower. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. This collective term of all stuff.
Yes.
But we used to say the manpower. Mm. Now we used to say human power. Human,
but some say when you say human, it's only man that is in that human.
Human.
The woman is not in that word. Yes. So even human will not be enough.
All right. Never thought of that. Okay. Policeman, mankind,
chairman.
Chairman, yes. So, gender
businessman.
Based.
Yes.
Or let's say church terms, like we have deacon and deaconess, but we have only elder. We don't have elderless.
Okay, elders, all right.
Or a pastor, well, we will not go far. Shepherdess.
Okay, shepherdess. Okay, so there's quite a few things that we may start thinking about. When you have a woman who's a chairperson, we have to be careful with that. We have only 2 minutes. And I'm going to ask each one of you to take about 20 seconds. How can we prevent or address gender discrimination here at IS? Just briefly, 20 seconds each.
Can I say it best way to do this is to, at least what I do in my class when I'm teaching, is to have a multi-intelligence test where everyone discovers their intelligence. And I see in the eyes of ladies, girls in my class, especially if they are studying the seminary, they are the minority, and then they discover they have some gifts other men don't have. So you equalize everyone by valuing people according to their intelligence. And this is wonderful. That's how God made us. He loves diversity, and He loves that we share our gifts, not according to our gender, but according to the gifts He gave to us, God gave to us.
Okay. We need to individualize instruction of our students. Let's go with Dr. Odiam.
I think one thing I would see is allow people to grow much closer with God. I think for me it's very practical because there is a way it transforms the thinking, the perception that one has. It takes away the stereotypes that people hold against each other, even male and female. Because gender is something very psychological. And therefore, and I believe the Word of God is a very psychological tool that transforms people's thinking.
Thank you so much. Jomar?
For me, I would like to highlight, first one is respect, and then be sensitive. Sensitivity. We need to respect others, like for what they are. Sometimes we are special in our own way, and so we have to embrace that specialty. Stop competing with the opposite gender, because that actually is our uniqueness. We have to work as who we are. Stop copying somebody, because your best version is that, your specialty. The next one is be sensitive, empathize. The golden rule goes, like whatever hurts another person will also hurt you. So try to think about that. Empathize and be in somebody's shoes.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for being with us, and thank you for watching. We have just run out of time, but we thank you so much for being with us today. If you have questions or suggestions or recommendations, please write to us at united@is.edu so that we can be in touch with you. We hope that you will join us again in the next program, and you can check even some more programs that we have recorded in the past. You can just check on YouTube channel. Thank you, and until we meet again, we want to encourage you to remain united in diversity.